Hey, good morning, all. How are you doing this Tuesday morning? It's cloudy. Rain is expected, but I'm going to try and finish the book, Line of Confusion, Chronicle 1 of the ABIS, by me, Britiany, a Christian. So let's get started on chapter 7. We set our faces toward Israel. Joshua, Abigail, and Rose looked at what was now a vacant property. A crew of men had cleared off the debris that was left from the storm, and it was now empty. Rose stood there trying to be reasonable and not give in to grief over their home. She knew that what Abigail said was right. They had survived, and that was the most important thing. When she worked in the shelter, she saw so many others that had lost so much more. The people were hurting, but they reached out to others to comfort them, and it strengthened her to do the same thing. Often Abigail would find her praying with someone or holding the children on her lap and telling them about Jesus. Rose had a wonderful way of telling stories, and she made it fun for the children. The elderly loved her stories too, and often would sit with the children when Rose was relating a Bible truth or reading the Bible to them. Many people gave their hearts to the Lord because of her witness. But now, as she stood in front of this emptiness, it was hard to think they could ever have a home again. She felt homeless and lost as she surveyed their land. Joshua went to his truck and pulled out some architect plans. He spread them on the hood of his truck. "Come here, girls, and look. I have a few plans from my dad's architect. Abigail was telling me that she wanted something a lot simpler. I'm sure you will find something here that you would like." Abigail and Rose looked over the plans as Joshua explained different aspects of the rebuilding of their home. When they started talking about the kitchen, Rose started getting excited. They were going to make it better than the one she had before. They were going to put in all the latest conveniences, big sinks and large islands, and lots of counter space that she could work on to prepare food. She was very excited. There was going to be 3 bedrooms and 1 bath off the kitchen for guests to use, and the bedrooms would each have a bath of their own. She had always wanted a big tub, and they were going to put a huge one in for her to enjoy. She was absolutely delighted. The wonderful part was that Joshua's dad could have one of his crews start right away. Joshua said it wouldn't take long for them to finish. In fact, he thought it would be done before Christmas. The basement was still in good shape, and they would just build the house over it. As the house began to come together, Rose's heart began to hope. She could see herself happily cooking some wonderful meal in the kitchen. She and Abigail would walk through the house as it was being built. I had a house once that we built. It's wonderful. The wonderful smell of fresh wood and new paint would assail their noses, and it was a wonderful feeling picking out the cabinets and the color of the paint, carpets, and floors from all the samples that Joshua would bring. They picked out beautiful fall marbled countertops because Joshua reassured them they would hold up better with use. Oh, and the stove, the newest model, and the most efficient. It was gorgeous. Soon all the appliances were in place, down to the wonderful new dishwasher. Rose had never wanted one before, but Abigail and Joshua convinced her it would be a time saver, and she agreed. Soon it was Christmas and the house was done. Abigail and Rose had so much fun picking out Christmas decorations for the wraparound porch and around the eaves of the house. Joshua took them to a tree farm to pick out a Christmas tree, and they had the best time. It had snowed, and they played like children, throwing snowballs at each other and looking through all the Christmas trees until they found the right one. It was then Joshua, after chasing Abigail and grabbing her around the waist, that they both fell down like children on top of the snow. And then, on impulse, Joshua kissed Abigail for the first time. Young love. Rose looked away when she saw the kids kiss, not wanting to intrude. But she was so happy for these two people that she loved so much. Yes, she had grown to love Joshua as a younger brother. He was a wonderful man, and she could see Abigail's happiness. Whenever he was around, her face would light up with joy. When the tree was put up in the living room, everyone agreed it was the most beautiful tree they had ever seen. After the decorations were put on the tree and they were relaxing with hot cocoa around the roaring fire in the fireplace, Rose suggested they have a party to celebrate the new house. They would invite people from church and others they'd met during the aftermath of the storm, as well as old friends. Abigail and Joshua smiled at each other and agreed with Rose. It was such a wonderful idea. Soon the day arrived and people were coming in for the party. And as Rose answered the door for what seemed like the millionth time, Joshua stood there with a foolish grin on his face. He patted his pocket and drew out a small wrapped gift and grinned from ear to ear. Rose was puzzled, but just smiled and watched as Joshua found Abigail, gave her a tight squeeze and a kiss, and drew her out to the porch. Whatever he had wrapped, he was anxious to give it to Abigail. Rose suddenly saw Abigail rush through the house and go down the hall to her bedroom and shut the door. Joshua came in from the porch looking as if the world had collapsed on him. Rose went over to him and pulled him back outside. "Joshua, what happened?" asked Rose, her eyes wide with concern. Rose, "I don't know. I bought this for Abigail." As he spoke, he drew out a velvet box from his pocket. He opened it, and there sat the most stunning diamond engagement ring she had ever seen. She sat down on the swing and patted the seat beside her. Joshua sat down beside her with moist eyes, not knowing what had happened. "Joshua, I was hoping that Abby would tell you about this, but I see that she has not been able to, so I will tell you." Joshua looked at her perplexed. "Yes, tell me, Rose, what's wrong? Doesn't she love me, or maybe she doesn't even like me? I thought..." His voice trailed off. "As you know," Rose started, "Abigail was married to a doctor, and a fine one at that, a brilliant surgeon, and he had a splendid practice. They had met at college and fell instantly in love. She worked as a nurse to help him through medical school. They did not want to take money from my parents, and were adamant to do things on their own. And they did. They succeeded in all they tried, and they were doing very well. They had been trying to have children, but could not conceive. Abigail was sure that her husband blamed her, and it was a heavy cross that she had to bear. One day, her husband came home early from the office and told her he had to talk to her about something very serious. He then told her that he had met another woman and was very much in love. The girl was pregnant and he wanted to marry her. He told Abby he wanted a divorce. Abby couldn't believe what was happening to her life and fell apart. She was very much in love with her husband, and his revelation to her had broken her heart. She called me and our parents, and we came and got her and her things. It wasn't too long after that we heard that her husband had been at a New Year's Eve party, drinking with his girlfriend, and they both had been killed in a car accident. Abby never spoke about him again. Abby sold his practice in their home and came to live permanently with my parents. There have been men interested in her, and they have asked her out, but she never would go. She told me she didn't think she could ever get married again. She didn't think she could ever trust anyone again. Oh my gosh, Rose, I had no idea. She never really talked about her husband. I didn't know this had happened to her. I can't believe her husband would do this to someone as wonderful as she is. Joshua sat on the swing with his face in his hands. I should have given her more time. I love her so much. I've fallen totally and completely in love with her from the moment I saw her. I couldn't believe I could ever feel this way again. I just want to marry her. I must have scared her away with my foolish urgency. When he took his hands from his face, Rose could see his face was wet with tears, and there was pain in his beautiful brown eyes that made her heart hurt. Listen, Rose, give everyone my regrets. There is much I have to think and pray about. Tell Abby I will talk to her later. He drew an envelope out of his coat pocket. He reached inside the envelope and drew something out and stuffed it into his pocket and handed her the envelope with her and Abigail's name on it. And with that, he disappeared into the night. Rose's curiosity got the best of her, and she opened the envelope. Inside were 2 open plane tickets to Israel. One in her name and one in Abby's. Rose clutched the tickets to her chest and looked out into the darkness to see if she could see Joshua, but he was already gone. With a heavy heart, she turned away and went back into the party and to look for Abigail. To be continued. What will become of Joshua and Abigail? Will things get better for them, or will they go their separate ways? Will Rose and Abigail go to Israel? And what about Babylon? Will they go there and solve the mystery of the ABIS? Find out next time in Chronicle 2 of the ABIS, Strong Delusions and Lies, by Britiany, a Christian, now on Amazon.com. And so we see that Abigail has got a lot of baggage from her previous marriage, as all of us do. We do. When we get hurt, when we have emotional pain and trauma, it's hard to get over it. And it's hard to see us, living normally again. But here's Joshua, who loves her dearly, and he wants to make a life with her. We shall see what happens next. But like I've told you before, dear ones, just don't give up. God is for you. And if God be for you, who can be against you? God, the creator of the universe. God, the one that created you and everyone that has ever been born or will be born. God, who is so magnificent that we can't even imagine him. But in the person of Jesus Christ, Jesus became a man so that he could live the way we live and be our sacrificial lamb to open up the gates of heaven that the devil had stolen away and taken away from us. But now, because of Jesus and his blood pouring on the mercy seat for us, we can come boldly to the throne of grace and come in and talk to God, talk to Jesus, talk to the Holy Spirit, talk to the three persons in one God. So in sync, so, I don't know how to put it, but they're one God. They're so in agreement. They're one God. So join me next time. We're going to start Strong Delusions and Lies and see what's next for Abigail and Rose and Joshua. All right, dear ones. Don't forget my book is on Amazon, and also you can read it for free on Prime and the other books as well. Okay, dears. We'll talk to you again.